Councillor Nick Francis Gilley, Chair of the City of Melbourne Transport Portfolio, is with me. Councillor Sally Capp, the Lord Mayor, is with me as well. Lord Mayor, do you want 30k speed limits in the city?
I think it's definitely worth considering. City of Yarra has a trial on at the moment, and so we're looking to see what evidence and results come from that. And having lived in London, for example, and spent a lot of time in cities around the world, I know that those speed limits can really make a difference. One, to safety and safety of pedestrians, and two, also just to the traffic flow. You don't have people racing and then stopping, racing and then stopping. So I think it's something definitely worth trying.
Well, Councillor Francis Gilley, would you look at, if you had 30-hour limits, perhaps variable limits? So at night it was, I come through the city before 5 a.m. and 40k's is pointless.
Yeah, I think as we talked before, the city's so varied, and we've got really different sized streets, as you said, from King Street right down to Little Flinders. So I think one of the things the transport strategy is trying to recognise is that it's horses for courses. So different times, different speed limits, different times, different situations for different roads. I think let's make the city work as well as it possibly can. The average speed is about 30k going through the city at the moment, and if you can do that, as the Lord Mayor said, without that sort of fast and then slow and fast and slow, but just get people and keep them moving, you're not going to lose any time.
Yeah, actually, Vic Road's got us some figures for last month of April. 5 o'clock average was 26.5 k's an hour. 8 a.m. average was about 29 k's an hour, roughly. So they're down there already. Hello, Melinda. Go ahead.
Hi, Neil, Sally and Nick. Sally, you really infuriate me. You're always on about your bloody bike riding and public transport. What about people in wheelchairs and walkers? Do you ever think about those people that need a car to come into town to either be dropped off or unloaded somewhere?
Melinda, it is such a good point, and that's why we're really trying to take congestion off the roads, because for people that need to use cars to come into the city, all those people with some sort of disability or delivery vans or tradies coming in, emergency services, we want to actually free up the roads so that you're not facing congestion.
That at all. Always going on about how much you ride your bike and how good it is and how you're always onto public transport. You hardly ever mention people in wheelchairs and
I
walkers
take that
and
feedback.
things like that.
I take that feedback, and I'll certainly make sure that we continue to prioritise that. And just on the on-street parking...
Do we need more disabled parking spots?
Well, it's a really good point, because in terms of on-street parking, we want to prioritise those people that need to use vehicle transport to come into the city, and that's what we will continue to do. So good point, Melinda, and thank you so much for raising it.
Sorry.
Well, I think we had so many people giving us support and information in our consultation process. And by far, most people talked about walking. Most people talked about access and accessibility. This plan is absolutely designed to recognise that what's most important here is that you make it safe for people who are working, and we keep all of the bays, and we actually free up bays for people with disabilities and people who need cars to get to the city because they walk. So that really is the focus.
Can you tell me what is demand-responsive pricing?
Well, demand-responsive pricing is as demand changes during the day. So you come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and there is absolutely nobody wanting to park. You actually would have pricing that says, well, actually, you can have it very cheap now because there's lots and lots of car parking. But at really peak times, you actually turn around and say, look, we want to deter people in here. There's not enough spaces. At those peak times where the prices will go up and get closer to your more private pricing, to actually say, hold on, I'm not sure I can afford that at that time, to encourage people to think about other methods, because otherwise they'll get here and they won't be able to park. There won't be enough parking spaces.
That sounds like a sneaky way to me to bring in more revenue, because you put up your parking fees at the busy times, and the other times you're putting in a fee where there isn't one.
Well, it's not so much sneaky. It's actually about trying to support people to give the information and actually does
it bring in more revenue?
Well, we don't know because we haven't done it, and that's why this is saying we should trial it.
Well, but Sally Capp's not going to cut it. You're not going to cut revenue.
If overall we're talking about fewer on-street car parking, you can tell that this strategy is not about revenue for the City of Melbourne. It's actually about making our city more productive to enhance the success of all the businesses here in the city.
So would it be revenue neutral?
We have consistently reduced our parking revenue for I've only been here 2 years, but in the last 2 years, we've reduced that by taking away parks. So
but you book more people.
Actually, no, the fines are down as well. Fines are down as well.
We are actually handing over parks to bicycles. We're handing over parks to motorbikes, as we said. We're handing over parks
Don't the motorbikes pay?
to disabled parks. No. We're doing more. We're doing a range of things that actually say, Uber and other car sharing places need places to pull over. All of those things mean we lose some spaces. This is about creating a city that works. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Tell me about the Idaho road rule. It lets your bikes use stop signs as a giveaway sign and treat red lights as a stop sign. Is that right? I thought they did that already here.
What we're doing is experimenting with how bikes can be treated differently to cars. So, for example, if you get to if you're going left and there's a bike lane and you come up on a push bike, get the bike out of the way from the car by letting them turn left into the bike lane.
Against the red light?
Against the red light on the bike path, because they go from bike path to bike path.
What if it doesn't get in the way? Crossing the road and he goes, whoa, there's a bike, bang.
But we already do that, and they have to give preference to, everyone has to give preference to pedestrians, so that's all right. We all do that. We all wait before we turn left if there's a pedestrian crossing. It's just about, if you're in a car and you've got 6 people there and they're turning left on bicycles, get that out of the way. Let's stop the congestion. Let's keep the traffic going. Let's get people productive and where they want to go.
I'm sure you two are accepted, but generally bike riders don't pay a lot of heed to road rules, do they?
Well, the truth is, lots of people break the rules, Neil. I'm sure you never do, but car riders do it. People jaywalk.
I don't run red lights
people
as often.
jaywalk. No, I know, but I think none of us, we're not supporting bad behaviour, and everyone breaks the rules, and we're trying to get the city to flow.
Yeah. And you want to vary the rules for bike riders.
No, I think any road rule would have to be consistent. It would have to be a consistent rule.
So you have cars turning through red lights as well?
No, that's a suggestion only for bicycles into a bicycle path.
That's not consistent.
Well, it's consistent rule for bicycles. So we do have different rules for bicycles at the moment. There's a set of rules for bicycles and a set of rules for cars.
And they're all otherwise. No, you're not.
I'm confused.
Okay. Oh, you're great. Well, I wasn't making sense. I'll go. Bye. It's nearly time. See you.
I do know you need to get away. Just a couple of other things, Lord Mayor, quickly. Have you sacked the panpipe busker? Is he gone?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. We've had this fantastic audition process for our premium spots, which is really Burke Street Mall. Our panpiper is welcome as a busker around the city, but I do understand the panpiper didn't make it through the first round of auditions, but a lot of very talented artists did, and it's about sharing that space in Burke Street Mall. It is the premium space for busking and making sure we get as many artists through there as we can.
And just finally, a question called in on this. The strategy advocates enforcement. Do you want council officers to have more power to enforce some of these different rules?
Yeah, I think enforcing rules is a really good idea.
So
I think too often
power.
we move to regulation for the exception instead of just enforcing the rules and making sure that people comply. So we're very keen if there are new rules that come in, and even in terms of existing rules that aren't working well, we need to make sure we've got the right sort of powers to be able to enforce the rules, because they're good for everyone.
And finally, on a totally different issue, the Facebook and the campaign by the Breast Cancer Network of women posing with topless with buns from Baker's Delight, rather. There's a lot of criticism of it. There's criticism of Facebook too. Where do you come down on it?
Well, look, I've only had from what I've seen this morning, I think it's a very cheeky campaign. I think it's getting lots of airplay. There it is on the front of the Herald Sun. Thank you very much. And we've seen this. Not at all. It doesn't offend me.
Would that be acceptable as an advertisement on the streets of Melbourne?
Absolutely. Brave women talking about a health issue and getting out there and saying, hey, think about it. I mean, we could pretend, we can make it boring and nobody could look at it. Or we could have brave women who have suffered from breast cancer getting out there and saying, hey, I want you to know about this because I don't want you to suffer. Good on them.
And as much about the fundraising, it is about the awareness for Breast Cancer Network Australia, and I think it's an amazing organisation.
So you'd agree, Lord Mayor, you could have that poster up in the streets of Melbourne?
Well, I'm not aware of a rule that wouldn't allow that at the moment, but we'll wait and see, because I believe it is going to be up on some of our signs around the city of Melbourne, so it'll certainly get people speaking.
But you certainly don't find it offensive, you'd support it?
I will be going to Baker's Delight to support this initiative.
Will you? What, is there a press event there? Or is that just...
No, I'll just go to my
Personally,
local
Go
one.
and get some buns.
I'll go, just as I did at Easter time with hot cross buns at the Salvos. I'm a very good eater around town.
That was Ferguson Blair.
It was indeed.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Neil.
Councillor Nick Francis Gilley and the Lord Mayor, Councillor Sally Capp.